AskReddit by Allo Veracity. What's a dead giveaway that someone is not actually as wealthy as they claim? When they constantly talk about how wealthy they are. A genius doesn't need to tell you they are smart. An athlete doesn't need to tell you they are fit. And a rich person shouldn't need to tell you they are wealthy. I know a guy who has a YouTube channel who constantly brags about being a multi-millionaire. Sadly for him, I know his brother-in-law, and in actual fact he drives an expensive car on HP, lives in a council flat in Burscough, Lancashire, England, and his business has just £11,000 of assets and a turnover of not much more. He's a bell end. Making the claim at all is a dead giveaway. I sat through a conversation at work this week with a group of people all talking about how they were gifted because they were part of their gifted programs in elementary school. They are 30s and 40s adults. Like, if you're bragging about it with acquaintances, you ain't. 90% of the wealthy shut the fuck about it, because they learn once they start making good money everyone wants a piece. And X200B. Talking about it constantly equals broke AF. I've learned from this thread that if you are very wealthy and don't want anyone to know, buy some Gucci t-shirts and talk about money all the time and everyone will just assume you're broke. People who actually are wealthy mostly try to hide it. As early 20-something-year-olds with no money, my friend and I decided to act like true tourists and visit Tiffany's. You know how in most department stores someone comes over and asks to help you? Yeah, not here lol. What was fascinating was that there were plenty of people decked head to toe in designer labels. Like super obvious loud bling type labels. And they were getting the same treatment we were being completely ignored. You know who was getting helped? The older guy in plain knockers and a college shirt and his well-dressed but zero obvious labels wife. I'm not well versed in judging someone's wealth, but I do notice that the fake rich only look rich on social media and try their hardest to go to popular locations celebrities post. I know a couple of friends who took out a loan just to keep up the facade that they're all in on the latest iPhones and wearables. They built a persona of being a rich kid, so now they have to stay the course. As a person which knows many very rich people, I can guarantee that not a single one of them wants to be known as rich. That sums it up pretty well. I went to school with two kids when I was younger. One's family was actually very wealthy. While he had nice things, he wasn't a braggart and he wasn't an asshole. He didn't act entitled, he just had nice things. The other kid's family was trying very hard to pretend that they were wealthy while actually being in severe debt from trying to keep up with the Joneses. The kid was an entitled asshole who would bully people on the playground. Her family would do ridiculous things to show off how wealthy they were. Her family ended up broke and she had to change schools when they lost everything. The other kid just quietly kept doing what he was doing. Didn't even find out how wealthy he was until we graduated from junior high and he invited the whole class over for a graduation party. That's when I found out that it was his family that had bull. Not having actual money? I allegedly used to sell weed to a lot of people with nice houses, cars, lives on paper etc, but the amount of times I had to spot people until they got paid on Friday was truly astounding. Allegedly. When they repeatedly and adamantly tell you how wealthy they are. I feel like actual rich people prioritize vacations, travel, buying their kids cars, paying for their kids' grandkids' tuition. They don't spend money on flashy or luxury stuff as much. This was my parents. They shopped at Kohl's, drove unassuming cars, but we vacationed every year out of the country. I got a new car when I turned 16, and didn't have any college debt. Other than living in an affluent area, you'd never know by looking at them. Ever notice how those jet-setting influencers that post their pictures out of the airplane window are behind the wing? They are in coach. The picture in business is where they stop to pose on the way through. There's also a fake airplane set some of them go to and take their photos. private jet pilot friend of mine said for the slightly wealthy they bring loads of luggage. The ultra rich bring a day back they have enough money to buy clothes when they get there or already have clothes waiting on them. I recall a Reddit comment from way back which was by someone who worked as an assistant to some super wealthy guy family. They explained how when the guy family wanted to travel somewhere, the assistant went right at work, taking care of everything from making the travel arrangements, custom ordering any clothes they might need or want at the destination, and then flying ahead a day early to collect everything, make sure the accommodations were in order and that the closets were stocked with exactly the clothes the guy family needed during that specific trip. I never met a wealthy person that talks about it. They don't need to. They make a goofy advertisement for some book or course that will help you get rich too. If they were actually rich, they would be on some tropical beach engaging in whatever vices they enjoy most, not hawking some get rich quick scheme. My dad's entire job is managing billionaire philanthropy accounts, so I've grown up surrounded by some of the wealthiest people in the country, and I never knew until I got older how these M.R. Smith and M.'s Jones people that I'd grown up hanging out with were anything above upper middle class. Normal clothes, modest homes, very down to earth and funny people. Big wealth, and especially old wealth, is quiet wealth. Do you think it's possible they live more extravagant lives than other of their social circles? Designer clothes with massive brand name icons aid tailored to those who want to seem as if they can afford it and pay ridiculous amounts of money. I think of this at work with my co-workers who have small purses with LV emblazoned all over them. Money talks, wealth whispers. Anyone that posts about their wealth, whether it be bragging, or posting about a new purchase, etc., usually aren't as well off as they pretend to be. Big hat, no cattle. Sorry but Gucci clothes. It screams wanna be rich. You can add Prada, LV, and whatever other mainstream luxury brands. Which looks silly because you end up like a walking billboard. I have a family member who insists she and her husband are upper middle class. She isn't. She's rich, 8 figures. But it hurts her in some sort of primal way to acknowledge that. Her adult brother is also wealthy, although not as much as his sister. Likely also 8 figures. He insists he's blue collar and middle class. There's something in their upbringing that makes them ashamed of having made it financially. When they flaunt it. Really rich people don't feel the need to mention the expensive things they bought or did every time. Except Floyd Mayweather. I know a guy who is a legitimate billionaire. They have 2 family jets, one for long and one for short range because, of course, who doesn't? Their house cost around $30 million to build. But, if you saw them on the street you'd never know it. His rule is they never own a car over $75k. Don't wear flashy jewelry or watches. No Birkin bags or Jimmy Choos. He doesn't want to advertise their wealth. You have to really know them. I knew them for a year before I was ever invited to their home, and their son was interning at my law firm for 6 months of that time. The really wealthy don't flaunt it. Because kidnapping is very real in many countries. They want to go away with you for the weekend and tell you they'll have the Gulfstream G550 pick you up at the local airfield Friday evening. You show up at the airfield only to find that G550 is really a barely functioning 74 Cessna 150 with the passenger seat ripped out for skydiving. That's the plain version of a windowless white van. You know all these Insta girls living the life aboard magnificent luxurious yachts. Well, their currency is their ass. It's an open secret that a lot of Instagram models are sugar babies. If a woman keeps posting pictures of her luxury vacations to Dubai, she's not the one paying for it. I love how everyone here knows what rich people do and don't do. Willing to bet there's some rich dude reading all this shit and laughing his ass off. A stack of losing lottery tickets. Having been around some super wealthy people, I would say that a giveaway of a false rich person would be knowing the price of things. If someone keeps telling you that the X they got cost $, and that Y cost $, they are trying to flex on you. Really wealthy people don't know the price of things, or at least the price of things that we the poor know. They might know the price of their yacht jet helicopter. They don't know the price of the car they drive, the clothes they wear, the tech they use. They just pay or have their people pay for them. It's one banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10. I have some very wealthy friends, dudes in their 30s who are multimillionaires. And the one thing they all have in common is that they never talk about money. They wear nice clothes and watches, but they don't point out anything or talk about how expensive things are. I also belong to the yacht club and a country club, and the wealthy people that I know never talk about money either. Really wealthy people don't talk about being wealthy because they are used to being wealthy. They constantly hit up people for money or to cover their tabs. Teeth, shoes, and an expensive car sitting outside a mediocre or crappy house. Wealthy or not, I'm wary of anybody with teeth sitting outside their house. The Lambo is a rental or a fee-roketed car. Brand names plastered over everything they own. Except certain cultures seem to like that. A friend who is from a remarkably wealthy family, billions, would have a different designer item with a big logo on each part of her body, and all over her gorgeous home. I got her to cut it out by telling her it made her a target for crime. I didn't have the heart to tell her it was tacky. She's very sweet. There is a modesty about the really wealthy, especially old money. And it is taught. Was on a gondola in Telluride and was riding with some young teens, probably brothers, maybe 12-14 years old or so. Asked where they were from and they said East Texas, where I'm from. Oh, so did y'all fly out to the FW? Me making small talk. They looked at each other uncomfortably and said very quietly, almost embarrassed but clearly schooled in what to say. We, flew privately. Oh, okay. My father is quite wealthy. Growing up I would ask him randomly, how much do you make or how much money do you have? His answer was always the same. If someone asks you, just tell them you don't know. It used to irk me to no end, but being older now I realize how wise his answer was. It didn't matter how much money, just that looking back on growing up, we never needed for anything. He never needed to brag about it or flaunt it. And he sure as hell was never going to let his kids become spoiled pricks either. That don't seem to actually have any money. You see it a lot in things like sports teams takeovers. Billionaires who claim to be backed by a consortium of other billionaires. But when it comes to actually putting money up, there's always a delay or a problem. Some people accumulate wealth by squeezing every dime out of every transaction, even when they have liquid assets to cover it 100,000 times. They will never pay today when they can delay and negotiate for different terms that may or may not be in their favor. It's a sophisticated mating dance for high-powered suits. According to the Waltons, it's their shoes. They get hauled into court on fraud charges for overstating the value of their properties in order to grift money from lenders. Lot of gaudy gold furnishings. They are on a Bravo TV show. How much they work. Work with a teacher who drives a really expensive car, dresses really nice, and complains about having to work 2 jobs. You know why they work 2 jobs? Because they can't afford the shit they bought and are in debt. I don't work much because I am okay with thrift store clothes and used cars. Being in debt is not wealth, it is just spending other people's money you can't afford. Teeth. Truly wealthy have either taken care of their teeth over the years or have expensive replacement implant sets. We could afford the payment, so we just went for it. They invite you somewhere but split the bill between everybody. When my true wealthy friends invite me somewhere, They will pay for everything because they know I can't afford it, and they don't make it awkward at all. My favorite trick is to go buy a gift card for the restaurant we're meeting at when I know my friend doesn't really have the money. Then when they insist on splitting, well, I've had this gift card forever, and if I don't use it now I'll forget again works every time. Also I get gift cards from my credit card for perks, so I'll claim the card I bought was a free one. Claiming to be wealthy is pretty much #1 giveaway. If you truly were wealthy you would keep your mouth shut. My husband's sisters have name brand everything. Purses, shoes, cars, bed sheets, perfume, sunglasses, literally everything they own has designer names on it. Even the throw pillows on their couch. One sister told me that she won't buy anything unless the designer name is visible. They are not wealthy people. They have good jobs, but they are not rich. They buy what they think rich people would buy. They think they look like they have money, but to me it looks like they are cosplaying someone with money. When you pull up alongside them in your Rolls Royce and they don't have any Grey Poupon. Losers. They will tell you they are rich. Real rich PPL don't want to be found out. No upside. Interior design sensibility. I grew up with 3 interior designers in my family who work with the wealthy. People who buy lots of expensive things like massive TVs and fancy furniture but don't have bespoke interiors. Dead giveaway. When your former fixer testifies against them in court that they are not as wealthy as they claim. Drives an Audi BMW but lives in a tiny house apartment because car payment is more than mortgage. So common in my age bracket these days and I don't really get it. I heard this quote once from my mother who worked at a trust and investment bank, and some of her clients were rich and some were downright wealthy. The quote is, "Rich people scream, wealthy people whisper." Meaning she would have clients walk in decked out in designer cloths and wearing a bunch of jewelry, and those clients usually had a few million to their name. The clients that came in wearing jeans and plain t-shirts had tens of millions to their name. Anyone bragging about sex, combat or wealth has a lot less of each than what they say.